Imagine this, a seemingly perfect, picture-perfect friendship between two teenagers. They were inseparable, spending hours together, sharing everything from school gossip to their most intimate secrets. But underneath the surface, something darker was brewing. A single, seemingly trivial argument on social media would ignite a series of events that no one could have seen coming. A life lost, a friendship destroyed, and a community left reeling in shock. All over something that started with a disagreement on a social media post. This is the chilling true crime story of how a teenager killed their best friend over a fight that began online. A tale of obsession, betrayal, and the fatal consequences of a fractured friendship. Sarah Donovan and Emily Green were the epitome of modern-day best friends. They had grown up together in a quiet suburban town, and from the outside, their friendship appeared as perfect as any. Both were bright, ambitious, and well-liked in their community. Sarah, a star athlete, was known for her competitive spirit and friendly nature. Emily, on the other hand, was the creative one, the artistic mind who would often find herself lost in painting or playing the piano. Together, they seemed inseparable, like two sides of the same coin. However, their bond was fragile, built on the illusion of shared values and mutual respect, when in reality, there were cracks that no one could see. These cracks began to widen with the rise of social media, where every post, every like, and every comment became a silent battleground for validation and attention. Sarah was the more outgoing of the two, always posting pictures of her athletic achievements, her social life, and the parties she attended. Emily, on the other hand, wasn't as vocal online, often choosing to stay in the background, preferring to let her artwork speak for her. But everything changed one fateful afternoon when Sarah posted a comment on one of Emily's recent paintings, a comment that would ultimately lead to murder. It all started with a simple Instagram post. Emily had uploaded one of her latest pieces of art, a powerful painting she had poured her heart into. It was a self-portrait that expressed the inner turmoil she had been feeling for months. The shadows and muted colors reflected her deep sense of isolation. To her, this painting was a cry for help, an expression of the struggles she had been facing with depression. But to Sarah, the painting was just weird. "It's dark, Em. Maybe you should lighten it up a little. Looks like you're going through something. Is everything okay?" Sarah commented, attaching a laughing emoji at the end. Emily, devastated by Sarah's tone, responded quickly, but with frustration creeping into her words. "What's wrong with it, Sarah? It's how I'm feeling. I don't need you to tell me how to paint." What Sarah didn't understand, or perhaps didn't care to understand, was that Emily had been struggling with depression for a long time. The painting wasn't just art for her, it was her release. She had poured everything into it, every ounce of pain, every sleepless night, and every tear. But Sarah, with her carefree, perfect life, saw it only as something to laugh at. The argument spiraled out of control quickly. Emily's feelings were hurt. She tried to explain to Sarah that her art was personal, but Sarah, feeling defensive, mocked her more. "Come on, Em. It's just a painting. You're way too sensitive. People are just going to think you're crazy with all that dark stuff." Emily's response was sharp. "You think I'm crazy? You think it's all a joke?" The digital back and forth continued for hours. Friends tried to step in, but the damage was done. Emily felt completely abandoned and misunderstood. And while Sarah acted like the argument wasn't a big deal, deep down, she couldn't help but feel a sense of superiority. After all, she had the perfect life, right? But what Sarah didn't know, what no one knew, was that Emily wasn't just angry. She was deeply hurt. The fight didn't just bruise her ego. It ripped open old wounds that had been festering for years. And when Sarah made the cruel mistake of texting her, "You're just being dramatic. Maybe it's time you got a grip," Emily snapped. The friendship, which had seemed invincible just days ago, was crumbling before their eyes. But this wasn't just a fight about art or social media or words that couldn't be taken back. This was the breaking point of a fragile, fractured friendship, a moment where anger and hurt collided, leading Emily to a place she couldn't have imagined before. As the days passed, the argument became a consuming obsession for Emily. She couldn't get the words out of her head. She kept replaying Sarah's comments, the hurt in her voice, the mocking laughter. Emily had always kept her emotions close to her chest, never wanting to burden anyone with her struggles. But now, She felt exposed, vulnerable, and completely alone. Sarah's casual dismissal of Emily's pain was the final straw. She felt like she had nothing left to hold on to. No one understood her. No one could ever understand the deep, crushing weight of what she had been going through. Her friendships had always been one-sided, built on superficial things that didn't truly matter. And now, Sarah, the one person she thought she could trust, had revealed herself to be just like everyone else. Shallow, uncaring, and cruel. Emily's pain turned to rage, and that rage would find an outlet in the most shocking and tragic way. The night of the murder, Emily was not herself. She had become a different person, someone consumed by her own hurt and anger. After a few days of silence between the two, Sarah sent Emily a message, trying to smooth things over. "Can we talk about this? I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry. Let's just forget the whole thing." But for Emily, it was too late. The apology felt hollow, insincere. Sarah had no idea what she had done. Emily's thoughts were clouded by her desperation to make Sarah feel the way she felt: hurt, betrayed, and alone. What Sarah had said had cut deeper than words could describe, and no apology could fix that. Emily's emotions, her jealousy, her pain, her need for control, had reached a boiling point. Without thinking clearly, she made a plan. Sarah had invited her over to her house later that evening. Emily knew Sarah would be home alone, and she would have one chance to confront her. Emily had already made a dangerous decision in her mind. She wasn't going to let this go. She couldn't. She went into the kitchen and grabbed a knife. When Emily arrived at Sarah's house, the air felt thick with tension. Sarah, unsuspecting of what was about to unfold, greeted her at the door with a smile, clearly trying to smooth things over. But Emily wasn't here to forgive. She wasn't even here to argue anymore. She was here to make Sarah feel the same gut-wrenching pain she felt. As Sarah led her into the living room, Emily's hand gripped the cold knife hidden in her jacket pocket. It all happened so fast. 1 minute, they were talking, Sarah apologizing for the argument, trying to make amends. The next, Emily was lunging at her with the knife, driven by a twisted sense of justice. The shock in Sarah's eyes was palpable. She hadn't seen it coming. There was no time to scream, no time to react. Emily struck her with a brutal force, stabbing her over and over again in a fit of rage. It was over in seconds. Sarah lay there, bleeding, lifeless, on the floor of the living room. The next morning, Sarah's body was found by her parents. They were frantic, calling the police when they found her in a pool of blood, a single stab wound to her chest, and the room in disarray. The police investigation quickly narrowed in on Emily as the only possible suspect. The tension in the air was palpable. The community, still reeling from the discovery, struggled to come to terms with the fact that the murder had been committed by someone so close to Sarah. But what led Emily to commit such an unimaginable crime? Was it truly just an argument over social media? Or was there something deeper that drove her to kill? As the investigation unfolds, more disturbing details about Emily's mental state come to light. The detectives learn about her troubled past, her struggle with depression, and her overwhelming need to be validated. The social media fight was only the catalyst for a much darker, deeply rooted obsession with control and rejection. But as the police close in, Emily has already disappeared, leaving behind only a trail of digital evidence and unanswered questions. Where is she now? Has she fled town? Or is she still hiding in plain sight? The chilling truth is far from over, and the consequences of Emily's actions have only just begun. What drives a teenager to kill their best friend over a petty social media dispute? Is it simply rage, or something far more insidious? The discovery of Sarah's body sent the police into a frenzy. The brutal murder was unlike anything the small suburban town had ever witnessed. Sarah had been beloved by everyone who knew her, her family, friends, teachers, even the neighbors. She was the epitome of the all-American girl, loved, respected, and full of potential. Emily, her best friend, was supposed to be the last person anyone would suspect. But when investigators began to piece together the timeline of events, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together disturbingly well. The police immediately focused their efforts on Emily after they learned about the heated argument between her and Sarah just days before the murder. A quick look at Emily's phone records revealed an unsettling string of messages between the two, and social media posts painted a picture of a toxic friendship that had been building to a boiling point. Emily had spent hours obsessing over Sarah's mocking comment on her art, the seemingly innocent words that had shattered her world. But the deeper the police dug, the more concerning the findings became. Emily's history of emotional instability, her need for validation, and a disturbing pattern of behavior that went far beyond the argument began to emerge. Emily Green had always been a quiet girl, the artistic type. She kept to herself, creating beautiful paintings, writing dark poetry, and playing the piano. To the outside world, she was the epitome of a sensitive soul, misunderstood by those around her. But behind her artistic demeanor was a young girl struggling with deep-seated issues. As a child, Emily had never felt truly accepted. At school, she was often overlooked, never part of the popular crowd, always on the fringes, never quite fitting in. Her family, while loving, didn't understand her artistic drive or the emotional weight she carried. Over time, she became more and more withdrawn, bottling up her emotions. She craved attention, but not just any attention. She wanted validation, approval, something to prove she mattered. And that's where Sarah had come in. For years, Sarah had been her confidant, her friend, and her emotional anchor. But as time went on, Emily started to feel like Sarah had moved on. She was popular, outgoing, and well-liked. Emily, meanwhile, felt like she was drowning in her own insecurities. The social media argument about Emily's painting wasn't just a fight over a comment. It was the culmination of years of simmering resentment, jealousy, and frustration. Sarah, in Emily's mind, had everything: confidence, love, popularity. Emily was left with nothing but her art, which felt like it was no longer enough to fill the void inside her. After the argument, Emily's anger only deepened. She replayed the conversation in her head over and over again, unable to let go of what Sarah had said. Her obsessive thoughts consumed her, each one more twisted than the last. She became fixated on Sarah's life, her perfect smile, her popularity, the way everyone adored her. Emily couldn't understand why Sarah didn't see her. Why didn't Sarah understand her pain? As the days went by, Emily became more unhinged. She started drinking more, her art became darker, more distorted, and her friends noticed a change in her behavior. She was no longer the shy, quiet Emily. They saw someone darker, someone obsessed. But Emily didn't care. Her jealousy had turned into something much more dangerous. And then came the night of the murder. Emily had already made her decision. She knew what she had to do. When Sarah invited her over to try and make amends, Emily saw it as the perfect opportunity to confront her once and for all. The evening started like any other. Emily arrived at Sarah's house, expecting to have a calm, rational conversation. Sarah was there alone, having just returned from a family dinner. The two of them sat in the living room, Sarah apologizing for the argument, asking if they could start over. But Emily wasn't here to forgive. Every word that Sarah said felt like a slap in Emily's face. The apology was too little, too late. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Em," Sarah said, sitting across from Emily. "I was just being honest, but I didn't think it would hurt you this much." To Emily, it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. In that moment, something inside her snapped. The knife, cold and heavy in her pocket, felt like the only answer to her frustration. Emily couldn't allow Sarah to walk away from this unscathed. She needed to make her understand. She needed to make her feel the way Emily felt. Without warning, Emily lunged at Sarah, her movements swift and calculated. The knife cut through the air, striking Sarah before she could react. Sarah's scream was drowned out by the sound of the stabbing, over and over again, until Sarah's body lay motionless on the floor. The next morning, Sarah's parents found their daughter's body, stabbed multiple times in her own home. The scene was brutal, with no signs of struggle. Sarah had been caught off guard. The police quickly realized that the crime was personal, and when they pieced together the argument between Emily and Sarah, they immediately turned their attention to Emily as the prime suspect. But when they arrived at Emily's house, she was nowhere to be found. She had disappeared, leaving behind only a trail of digital evidence, a string of social media posts and texts that led investigators straight to her. Emily's phone records revealed that she had left Sarah's house late that night, but no one knew where she went after that. Her friends said she had been acting erratically for days, but none of them knew where she might have fled. The police scoured the town, checked local bus stations, and even contacted nearby shelters, but Emily was gone. As the search intensified, Emily's parents were interviewed by the police. They were in shock, unable to comprehend how their daughter could have committed such a brutal act. Emily's father, a well-respected local business owner, was beside himself. He couldn't fathom that his daughter, the quiet, sensitive girl, was capable of murder. But deep down, he knew something had gone terribly wrong. As the days turned into weeks, Emily's whereabouts remained a mystery. But as the investigation continued, the truth about Emily's mental state began to surface. Therapists and close friends revealed that Emily had struggled with depression for years and had been seeing a counselor off and on throughout high school. Yet, no one had realized how deeply troubled she had become. In the final twist of the investigation, an anonymous tip led the police to an abandoned cabin on the outskirts of town. Inside, they found Emily, unharmed but clearly broken. She was sitting in the corner of the room, surrounded by the remnants of her artwork. Her face was blank, as if she had finally realized the gravity of what she had done. The police arrested her without resistance. Emily was charged with first-degree murder. The trial was a media sensation. Everyone wanted to know how a teenager could kill her best friend over a social media argument. The defense argued that Emily's emotional instability, combined with her history of depression, had led her to snap. They pleaded for mercy, asking for a sentence that would allow Emily to receive psychiatric care. But the prosecution was unrelenting. They argued that Emily's actions were premeditated, that she had planned the murder in cold blood after days of obsessing over the argument. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning with a verdict: guilty. Emily was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But even as the judge handed down the sentence, the question remained: was Emily a victim of her own mental illness, or was she simply a young woman who had let jealousy and obsession lead her to commit an unforgivable crime? As Emily's trial came to a close, a new question emerged. Could she have been saved before it was too late? Was there a way for her to have been stopped, to have found help before she went down the dark path that led to Sarah's death? And what does it say about the world we live in when something as trivial as a social media argument can spiral into something so deadly? The truth is, there are no easy answers. But one thing is certain: Sarah is gone. A life has been lost, and the consequences of Emily's actions will follow her for the rest of her life. Stay tuned for more gripping stories, where the darkest secrets are always waiting to be uncovered. Like, comment, and subscribe if you were disturbed by this story, and don't forget to hit the notification bell for future episodes.